Welcome back, everyone. Those people who have read the schedule will know that Glenn has not provided a bio, so I get to make one up on the spot. Given the brief description that I was given, I think I remember it. Glenn is a long-time developer in both Python and one of the C's, C++. I nearly said C#, that would be really wrong. He enjoys riding motorcycles and horses and is now going to give us a talk where the tagline for fun and profit actually makes sense because it's about accounting. So let's make him feel welcome.
Right, hi everyone. So my talk is about plain text accounting for fun and profit, and you see I've got some footnotes on that. So it's actually type 3 fun. You'll have to look that up. And for the profit bit, there is some creative accounting required. Because, based on the amount of time I've spent doing this compared to just buying someone's thing, it's been a lot more expensive. So, firstly, a disclaimer. I'm not an accountant, so if you are and you know some of the stuff, please excuse me if I get some of it slightly wrong, but I haven't had a growling from my accountant yet. I'm not a financial advisor, so you shouldn't take any advice from me, and you should seek that advice from a suitably qualified person. And this talk is about accounting, so it might be quite dry, but we'll see. And also, sorry about the bio. I wasn't actually expecting my talk to be accepted, so I didn't do it, and no one reminded me. So, but anyway, I'm a long-time developer. I do C++, Python, JavaScript, whatever anyone will pay me to do. Right, so the first thing I want to do is acknowledge the people that wrote. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't be standing there, should I? Acknowledge the people who wrote the tools that I'm going to be using, because I'm really appreciative that people provide this software for free and we can use it and there's no obligation. And that goes to the whole community of free and open source software that we're all probably using day to day, including Python. Especially Simon Michael, who created hledger, which is the plain text accounting tool that I've chosen. So why did I decide to kind of like write my own accounting system? I'm just going to start my timer, which I forgot to do. For years, I had this ancient version of MYOB. It wasn't ancient when I started. I think, 2001, 2003 or something. And it did what I wanted. It made invoices. It categorized things so you could do GST and send the data to the accountant. And it ran on Windows XP. And of course, then Windows XP got end-of-lined, and then eventually, this software had a thing which would phone home, and they turned off the phone home thing, the internet online phone home thing, and then you had to physically phone and talk to someone, and they would, you had to phone, and there would be an autoresponder, which you got a key, and keep going. So I kept it rolling along for a long time, and then eventually, it just became too much. And all this time when this was happening, I was going, surely I can do something. There's lots of software out there. So based on using that in a very simple way, it's just me. I don't do a lot. So the main goals for what I need to do with accounting are firstly to create invoices, and secondly, it's what my accountant calls compliance stuff, which is calculate GST, and then send all my categorized data to that accountant so that they can work out how much tax I owe. And the other thing that maybe you needed to, and I thought this at the beginning, was calculate the amount of outstanding invoices that you have. But because it's just me, I've got if I had 4 invoices in a month, that would be a lot. So that receivable stuff, you can have that in your head. You just look at your bank statement and go, oh, Jim hasn't paid. So it's pretty easy. So why plain text accounting? So firstly, I was having a discussion with Tim this morning, and he said, what's plain text accounting? And I thought it might be obvious, but I'll have to give you a bit of a rundown on that. So accounting systems have data, like all of your financial data, and typically they are designed for large installations, and that data will be stored in a database. and it won't be human readable, and you have to use special methods, like, I don't know, whatever you've got, SQL or something, to get the data out to look at it. What plain text counting is about is that data is stored in text files which are human readable and editable with a text file, with a text editor. So all of the data is raw, if you like. It's there, you can do whatever you like with it. So the other reason is that I wanted to use open source stuff. Of course, I've explained my requirements are simple, and I didn't think it was worth the cost of a software as a service thing. You know who the main players are in that field. And I've been looking around for quite a long time, and there are not many options. There are some very good things out there, but mostly they're all-knowing sort of software products where they're sort of more targeted at the enterprise, so like things like Odoo. There's another one, GNU Cache, which keeps its data on your computer. But they all had issues that just made them either overly complicated or couldn't quite do the thing you wanted to do, and it just made it hard. So I stopped looking. And so the other reason, of course, is just to see if it was possible. So plain text accounting. So the main thing is that you've just got plain text files. You can put them in version control. And another really important thing is your data is within your total control. It's on your computer. Nobody else has access to it. And also you get proper double entry accounting. So you could do this thing with a spreadsheet, but then you wouldn't get that advantage. So the things that you need to learn. So some disadvantages are that you do need to know a bit about accounting and a bit about bookkeeping and how that sort of thing works. But if you've been churning away at this ancient system for a long time, you kind of pick a few things up. And the other thing, which is a disadvantage too, is that all your data is in your control. So you are responsible for its security, and you are responsible for its backups and all those sorts of things. So, it's two ways. But the main thing that's attractive for me about it is that it's a text file. So there's a website for this. It's called plaintextaccounting.org. There's lots of information there if you're wanting to look at this further. So the reasons you might want to do this is, as I've already explained, you've got really simple bookkeeping needs. Like me, I have a few invoices a month. I don't record purchases because I don't buy things on credit. I don't have payroll. You need to have a basic understanding of how accounting works. You like doing things yourself. And again, you don't want your data to be on someone else's computer. Now back to that spreadsheet thing. Like, you all know the problem with spreadsheets, right? Is that you can't actually see what's happening. Like, you just see the answer, and there's no real easy way of verifying that things are right or wrong. So double entry accounting sort of tries to give you some sort of cross-checking, I guess. Now the other thing is that if I could do this with a pencil and paper, I probably would, because I'm kind of like trying to go really low-tech on this. And people did that for centuries, and that's how double entry bookkeeping was invented. But of course, that's not amenable to automation. And so my real goal for this is to be able to, when it's GST time, which is what takes up which was taking up most of my accounting input, is I want to be able to get the data from the bank, push a button, and go, that's how much GST I owe to the government. So I'm nearly there. So I'll go through a few details about how I'm actually doing it. So for producing invoices, now, if you wanted to go really low-tech on this, you could just create a word processor document and type in what the information you needed, and that would be good. But then you don't have any easy way of connecting it to the rest of your system. And also, in New Zealand, there are some regulatory stuff about invoices where you have to put in the information that's listed on this slide, the addresses and GST numbers and stuff. One advantage of using a commercial product is that they are all over the regulatory stuff. So when the government changes the regulations, those people, it's their job, and you pay them to sort that out and make sure that their product is compliant. If you're doing it this way, then you're on your own and you have to sort of ask your accountant. So the other thing about your invoice is that you want it to look professional, and so I kind of like latex, so I know it's a big hammer, but I pulled that out because I knew how it worked and I could make it work. And also, I found a neat template that uses Pandoc, so most of the work was already done. So the way that I do this is I've got all of my data for the invoice in YAML. There's this Pandoc and LaTeX template which produces a PDF file. I'm just going to note about, if you've never installed tech, be prepared. I mean, I got away with it when I got it on my Mac, but it is massive. It has like a spaghetti web of dependencies, and the smallest thing can upset it. And I think I actually got it wrong once, but it's because I hadn't installed the right meta package. So just if you are planning on that, then that's a little heads up. So to actually make the PDF, all you have to do is run Pandoc. So that's the command line on the slide there that I use for running Pandoc. Now, I'm going to switch to VS Code here. No, I won't. So the way that this works is there's a file, an input file, and you can actually combine it, but in this instance I've got two parts. There's a YAML file which contains all of your specific data that is for this invoice that you want to generate, and then there's a template file which contains the layout information. So what I've done is I'll show you that file because my thing writes it out. So can I? Ooh. So this is all higgledy-piggledy, you'll notice, because it's all the information is there, but it's in no particular order. So this is what you have to do with this template to produce an invoice. It's that simple. All you have to do is fill out this YAML and run the script. And if I do that right now, my script prints it out on the screen. And the file it produced is this one. So you can see that I've paid a lot of attention to making it look professional. So, I mean, this has got all the things it needs. It's got the customer's address, the date, my address, GST number, you know, the normal things, the line items on your invoice, GST, and some other payment information. So that's pretty much what every invoice needs to do. With this template, you can also add in more details. So what I actually do is I only put in, I've abstracted out all the information that's common. So in this, you see there's a big jumble of stuff. What I immediately recognised that I would be repeating stuff. So what I've done is I've pulled out the definition of my data, and then I've also, each time I get a new client, I will add their information in here. So this is just ordinary YAML. The template, like, it's the sort of thing that you're really grateful that someone else wrote it for you first. It's quite easy. Like, once it's there, it's real easy to get in there and mess with it. But you know, to start from scratch, for me, would be quite a daunting task. But anyway, you add in. I'll go down the bottom because it's easy to see. So stuff that's in your YAML, variables in your YAML can be put in with this these dollars variables. So you'll see that in here, company, there's my bank name here, Big Bank New Zealand, has made its way into, will make its way into here. So the other thing that this does, which is kind of, I can't remember why I did this, but LaTeX has this really cool thing called spread tab, which is basically a whole spreadsheet inside LaTeX, which is, it's mind-boggling how that works and why someone would have wanted to do it, but it turned out to be very useful. And I can't remember why I used it. It may have been in the template, because you could also very easily have done this in the Python script that generates the data. So, but anyway, this script, this spreadsheet, I think, oh, that's right. I used it because it makes everything in a nice table. Because you can do this pandoc thing and put markdown tables, but markdown tables are awful because you've got to type like a whole lot of, you know how, if you don't know how markdown tables work, you've got to type a line of dashes and then you've got to make sure everything's lined up and you've got to type that's why I did this. So, and then I noticed it was a spreadsheet, so it had a cool feature where you could do calculations inside it. So for whatever reason, maybe it just seemed easier at the time, I made it so that the template calculates the GST. So if you have a client, like an overseas client, where the GST code is 0 rated. I don't know if you guys know anything about that, but you don't charge, of course you don't charge them GST, but most accounting packages have some sort of code that tells you, and the one that I migrated from used S for standard and Z for 0 rated, so I've just used those as well. So I can tell my script that this particular customer uses is to be 0 rated, and then in my template, somewhere down here, it knows, and so it calculates the GST. So that's how that works. So I'll just show you the other one, if it comes up. Oh my God. So you can, in that spread tab thing, it also gives you the ability to put in details. So for my customers, I use that for putting in the ones that require it, for putting in the hours I've done on a particular day. Of course, these are all fictitious numbers. So back to right. So I suppose since we're in a Python conference, we should look at the Python. So I'll start at the bottom. So this is my script that, it's all it does is it just, we don't need to look at the Python. I'll tell you what it does. It just, because I've extracted all the data out into clients here, customers there, clients here, my stuff there, all it does is it reads all those YAML files and merges it into a dict and then outputs it in a file for pandoc to read. And so that just means that I don't have to keep repeating that every time I want to make an invoice. Oh, and then it calls the script automatically. So all I have to do is, when I want to make a bill for someone, I just create that YAML file, which is quite short, run the script, and I've got a PDF. So it's the same amount of effort that I would have had to expend if I was using my commercial GUI package, because you still have to put the data in, and it's the same data, so there's only a very small overhead for me to add in the YAML keys or whatever extra bit I need to put in. Right, so GST. This is where the plain text accounting stuff really comes to the fore. If you want to do this for yourself, you do need a little bit of accounting knowledge. You need to know about how chart of accounts works. You need to know sort of what the accounting equation means. Well, maybe you don't, because it's all kind of, once you understand the terminology, it's all kind of, to me, obvious, but if you're learning for the first time, probably isn't. So what I do is I do a GST on a cash basis, and I guess a lot of us in my position would do that. if you want to know the difference between that and the other basis, which was accrual, we can have that discussion later. And so all you're really doing is you're taking the bank statement, you're sorting the transactions into categories, and then you're using, and that goes into the as an input into the accounting package, and then you have a sum for each category, and basically that's what you use for calculating the GST. It's not all that difficult. So of course the bank statement contains GST inclusive amounts, so that's not a problem. The way that hledger does this is that when you are, I'll go to the next slide. So hledger is a plain text accounting tool that reads a text journal file and produces reports. That's pretty much all it does. So it does a whole bunch of stuff, but the things I use it for are importing CSVs, looking at the sum of a particular account, that's how I calculate GST, the balance of all of the accounts together, and export the data as a CSV so that I can give it to my accountant. Sorry, just looking how we're doing for time.
8 minutes.
Heaps of time. So, hledger uses, there's a couple of different ways that it inputs data. So the first thing is there are a bunch of directives in its journal file where you declare things. And this is like it'll automatically create your journal file, and this is what it puts at the top. So you've got the typical accounting stuff, assets, liabilities, equity, income and expenses. So basically what we're doing is we're sorting our bank statement into those categories. And you can have, of course, a large and deep hierarchy of subcategories under each of those, and that's useful to do. So what's on the next slide? Yeah, so another essential feature that hledger has, and this is I think the reason why I chose it over the other plain text accounting tools. And I think they all do this, but I couldn't figure them out. This was the first one that I understood, so I just went, oh, well, it does the job, I'll use it. So you declare in the journal file virtual accounts. So what this line that starts income :S is saying is that if you post anything to an account income S, it will automatically post a fraction, which is 3 divided by 23 of that amount, into this other account, which is liabilities GST collected. So what that means is when you run the input data through it, the GST will accumulate in that account as long as everything is categorised correctly. Right, so I've got some live examples to show you that working. So in order to categorise things, you have to have some more information, which is where is it? Lost it. This one. A rules file. And what this is doing is it's simply matching on a particular field in the CSV file. So the import is a CSV, and so you declare what the fields mean on this is in line 7, if you can read that. You declare what the fields are, and then you just match stuff on those fields. So what I'm saying is, and what this file is saying is that my first account 1, is the bank account, so that's where stuff's coming from. Or actually, when you look at it in accounting, like this is the other thing, if you've ever looked at accounting and you don't really get it, lots of things seem backwards, and I think this is one of them for me. And I've never quite understood that. When I have a problem with something being backwards, I just mess around with it till it looks right. So that's just saying that like the account you're importing is this bank account, and then when you're matching the transactions in the CSV file, which I can show you. No, I can't. sorry. When you're matching the transactions in the CSV file, these lines are just regular expression matching fields, and then they are making the other leg of the transaction. So this is double entry accounting. So what you're saying is you're putting one part of the transaction into account 1, and the other part of the transaction is going to go into whichever account gets matched. Right? So this is all, these will all, I've already of course pre-configured this will all match. So if I run, so there's a bit of an iterative process here, because when you get a new bank statement, there might be transactions in there that you don't recognise, or that it doesn't recognise and that you haven't seen. So what you'll do is you run the, if I run my import command, have a look at that. So importing runs this, I've written a script to just make it easier, but basically it runs hledger, which imports the file, and then what this script is doing, and this is what they recommended in the documentation, is it pipes it into another copy of hledger, and then that is listing all the accounts that come out of the bank account. And so what you end up with is what you can see at the bottom of the screen, is a listing of all the transactions and which account they went into. Right? So there are going to be some in there that you haven't categorised. So what you do there is you just use the terminal again. So I mean, pipes are marvellous, aren't they, for this sort of stuff? Like this is a real sort of a hands-on type way of doing it. But I've doctored this so that it's come out like this. So what this is telling me, because I'm piping it through, oh, you can't see this on the screen, sorry. I'm piping it through grep when it comes up there. It's telling me that I haven't categorised these particular transactions. So you do this iteratively, and every time you get a new bank statement, you're going to have maybe one or two, but all the ones you did last time are still all good, because you'll find a lot of stuff in your bank statement is repetitive anyway. Like you put in insurance or whatever, it just keeps going. It's the same every time. So so you find one of these, you go to your rules file, you add a rule for it to put it into a particular account, and there's no unknowns. All good. So the next thing you want to do is import it into your journal. So now that this has just created a journal file with all of those transactions in it. So let me show you what that looks like. So here's my header, which we already looked at. Here's the things that the rules that do the virtual postings, and there is all of my data. So when we say plain text accounting data, this is the data that you are interested in. And so now, in order to compute GST, you just do in accounting they call it trial balance, but in hledger it's just called balance. So this is telling me that, actually this is not quite right. This listing is telling me all of the categories that I need to know. So when I come to fill out my GST return for inland revenue, I've got my sales and income, which they call it sales and income, so that's the number. The number I will use here is 81,906. And to work out the GST, I need to go down a level. So because this is a level 2 printout and in the hierarchy, and I need to know what the level 3 numbers are for the actual GST amounts. Oops, why did that happen? So now I've got GST collected. You can see that at the bottom. It's real small at the bottom, but you can see that. I've got liabilities GST collected and liabilities GST paid, and those are the answers. So I'm done.
You're done.
So I'll just flip back to there. yeah, I'm done. Questions?